Welcome to the City of Milpitas Planning Commission. Good evening, everyone. So it's 7 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. May I request Commissioner Kong to do our pledge of allegiance? Please arise. Everyone, please be seated. Well, let me read this public comment instructions. Oral public comments may only be provided live during the Planning Commission meeting in person. All comments provided shall be limited to 3 minutes or less as determined by the chair. All public members will be limited to 1 comment per agenda item and 1 comment per non-agenda item. Members of the public may submit written comments by email to the planning department at milpitas.gov. May I request at this time Ms. Liz to call roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Planning Commission and community members, I'll take attendance starting with Commissioner Kong. Here. Commissioner Colkins.
Here.
Commissioner Gupta.
Here.
Commissioner Awasti.
Here.
Commissioner Galang.
Here.
Vice Chair Medina Ashby.
Present.
And Chair Albana.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liz. At this time, I would ask our city attorney, Attorney Critch, to give us the declaration of non-conflict of interest, conflict of interest.
Thank you, Chair. I ask the Chair and every other member of the Commission whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
Commissioner Kong? No. Commissioner Colkins?
For item 9 on the agenda, I actually own an interest in real property within 1,000 feet of the project, and therefore I must recuse myself from any discussion or deliberation from this item to prevent any appearance of impropriety. I have not been involved in the project or communicated with my fellow commissioners or city staff about it.
Commissioner Gupta?
No.
Commissioner Awasti?
None.
Commissioner Galang?
No.
Vice Chair Medina Ashby?
None.
And Chair Albana?
None.
Let the record reflect that that declaration of the 1 conflict. Commissioner Calkins will leave the room when that item is called, and he may return after it is complete. I further ask the Chair and every other member of the Commission to please disclose any campaign contributions of $100 or more received within the last 12 months from any of the parties entering into contracts with the city on tonight's agenda, or contributions received from any development project applicant for development projects on tonight's agenda.
Ms. Liz?
Commissioner Kong? None. Commissioner Colkins?
None.
Commissioner Awasti?
None.
Commissioner Galang?
None.
Vice Chair Medina Ashby?
None.
And Chair Albana?
None.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liz.
You missed me.
Oh, Commissioner Gupta, I apologize.
None.
Thank you.
Let the record reflect no reported campaign contribution conflicts. Thank you very much, Chair.
You're welcome, Attorney Critch. Thank you, Ms. Liz. And yes, we are quite long on this table, so sometimes we miss.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. So our next agenda item would be the approval of our agenda for tonight, co-commissioners. So do I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda today?
I make a motion to approve the meeting of tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Awasti. Do I hear
I'll
a second?
second that.
Second by Commissioner Calkins. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kong?
Vote.
Aye. Commissioner Colkins?
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta?
Aye.
Commissioner Awasti?
Aye.
Commissioner Galang?
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina Ashby?
Aye.
And Chair Albana?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liz. So our next agenda item would be announcements. Any announcements, planning commissioners for the city? Any announcements also, planning director? Yes, Commissioner Calkins.
Yeah, I just have one, at the recent HOD meeting we had, for the proposals that we're working on. I was thoroughly impressed with how Jay Lee and Lillian handled the audience with all the feedback and the questions that they did. So the city definitely has some opinions about what's going on with that. So I just wanted to say good job.
Thank you, that's true. Thank you so much for that. We do really appreciate the city staff, even the people are right at the counters. There's been such a big change. I'd also like to appreciate to Ron and Sam for our IT in hosting us here. So thank you again very much. Although we don't have air conditioning, we stay cool. We are cool. This is a planning commission cool body. Thank you. We're the cool commissioners. We're the cool commissioners. I want the public and I want to appreciate those who are here for giving their comments because we want the citizens of Milpitas to be involved. We want them to hear and we want them to give us an input. So we may not have an action in it, but we may agendize it. But again, I want you to feel that you are always welcome. So our next planning director, any comments, please?
Chair, I think you missed item number 6.
Oh, item number 6. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Excuse me. We need the approval of the 2 agenda meetings we had. Thank you, Commissioner Galang. Just the minutes, approval of the minutes, yes. So right now, we will have the first one. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June the 26th?
I make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Gupta. Second by
I'll second it.
Commissioner Calkins. Thank you. We have a vote now, please. Roll call.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Kong. Aye. Commissioner Colkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta.
Aye.
Commissioner Awasthi.
Aye.
Commissioner Galang.
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina Ashby.
Aye.
And Chair Albana.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so for the motion to approve the meeting of August the 14th, please, any motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the minute.
Thank you, Commissioner Kong. It's seconded by
I second.
Commissioner Gupta. Thank you very much. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you. Commissioner Kong.
Aye.
Commissioner Colkins.
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta.
Aye.
Commissioner Awasthi.
Aye.
Commissioner Galang.
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina Ashby.
Aye.
And Chair Albana.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Liz. So I guess I went ahead unless we want to switch our agenda items from the announcements that came first before the approval, but I think planning director has an announcement.
Thank you, Chair Albana. Just a couple of announcements. The September 11th Planning Commission meeting, which is on the current Planning Commission calendar, is canceled, and we sent out a notice of cancellation as there are no items to be heard. The next meeting, September 25th, currently there are no items scheduled for that meeting as well. So we will send out the notice of cancellation if or when it becomes official. And then, so the next meeting that we expect will be October 9th, as we have tentatively scheduled a couple of items for that meeting. So just want to give a heads up to everybody, all the commissioners, and also for the public. And then my second and last announcement is, as Commissioner Calkins mentioned, we did have a community meeting for the housing opportunity districts. Thank you, Commissioner Calkins, for the nice and the kind words. It was a good meeting. We got a lot of good feedback, a lot of concern about the project as well. So I do believe there's a lot of work to be done, but I am optimistic that we can move this project in the right direction. Just to give a brief summary for everybody, this is a project to rezone some areas that have been identified in our general plan for mixed use residential. We want to rezone it to implement what the general plan has already envisioned, which is to revitalize our shopping centers in this area. This body, the Planning Commission, recommended approval to the City Council a while back, but we will continue to work with our community to address the concerns. And just as a little bit of a forecasting or a heads up, we will host at least one other community meeting. We may do other forms of outreach just to really make sure that the people who have concerns has a voice and that we work collaboratively with everybody. So I do look forward to that. So just wanted to share a brief update on that project. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Planning Director. That's great news. Anybody else who'd like to make any announcement? They're having no more announcements. Our next agenda item would be our public forum. Let me read the declaration. Members of the public are invited to speak on any item that does not appear on today's agenda. Comments may be limited to 3 minutes or less at the chair's discretion. When called to speak, you are encouraged to state your name for the record. As an item not listed on the agenda, no action can be taken. However, the Planning Commission may instruct the staff to place the item on a future meeting agenda. Thank you. Our next agenda item is public hearing, and we will have our project planner, Mr. Randy Bias, present us our 9-1 new hillside residence at the 1327 Terra Vista Court. Good evening, Mr. Randy.
Hi, good evening. Just making sure you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you
we
fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, and good evening, members of the public. My name is Randy Bias, Associate Planner with the City of Milpitas.
And sorry, Randy, before you start in on this item, Commissioner Culkins, I do think that this is now when you need to leave the room. Thank you, Commissioner Culkins, and thank you, Chair. Pardon the interruption. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Culkins has left the room as he said he would.
Thank you, Commissioner. Attorney Critz, thank you. Go ahead, Attorney, Mr. Bias, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The item before you is a request for a site development permit and planned unit development amendment to construct a new single-family residence located in the Hillside Combining District at 1327 Terra Vista Court. The applicant is requesting a site development permit and a planned unit development or PUD amendment to construct a 5,998 square foot, 1.5 story single family residence on a 1 acre vacant lot, and an amendment to PUD number 68 to include changes to exterior finishes and design to what was previously approved. The project site is located in the single family hillside zoning district. As a result, this application will require recommendation from the Planning Commission and approval from City Council. And this is an aerial image of the project site and is located in the northeastern portion of the City of Milpitas, just to the west of the Bayview Golf Club. The property is part of the Countryside Estates subdivision, which is a community with a homeowners association. There is also an open space parcel located immediately west of the project site with no future development. Next slide, please. This is the zoning map of the property. The project site and neighboring properties are zoned R1H or single family residential hillside. The general plan land use designation for the project site and surrounding properties is hillside low density. The home is located east of the crest line where 2-story homes are permitted up to a maximum height of 27 feet. This property is part of PUD 68, also known as the Countryside Estates. And here's an exhibit showing the 4 lots all along Terra Vista Court. Terra Vista Court has a moderate to steep incline with lot 4 near the bottom and rising up to lot 1 at the end. Next slide, please. Planning staff has created this table to provide context for development of the area. Other projects along Terra Vista Court range from 5,000 to 6,000 square feet in size and with similar building heights. Lot 1 was recently denied by the City Council. Lots 2 and 4 have been approved, and the construction drawings are under review. And this is Lot 3. Here we see a site plan of the proposed project. The home faces east towards Terra Vista Court, which you can see here to the right. The lot adjacent to the left is a large preserved open space that will not be developed. The lot is approximately 1 acre, which allows for a maximum of 8,000 square feet of impervious surface coverage, and approximately 7,600 square feet is proposed. This is a floor plan of the proposed first floor. This will include the attached 2-car garage and adjoining mechanical room, which will house mechanical HVAC equipment, water heater, water filtration system, internet connections, and so forth. The required parking for the proposed residence is 4 spaces, and the proposed project includes 2 enclosed parking spaces and 2 parking spaces accessed from the driveway, for a total of 4. This upper half floor plan features a master bedroom, 3 other bedrooms, an office, living room, family room, dining room, and kitchen, along with 4.5 bathrooms. There is also a detached accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, that will be proposed on the lower floor, but that will be processed through a separate application. And to the rear of this floor is a patio with a wooden trellis. Next slide, please. These images show the proposed renderings at different angles. The proposed residence will be at a maximum height to the top of the roof as measured from lowest finished grade at 27 feet. And the next slide will include examples of the proposed exterior colors and materials. The project is designed in a modern palazzo style, which adds to the architectural diversity of the neighborhood. The exterior materials are composed of smooth finished white stucco, natural white limestone, dark aluminum windows, metal roof tiles, and decorative balustrade on balconies and stairs. The colors and materials proposed are complementary to the character of the rural neighboring residences, but will also add to the diversity of the neighborhood. Here are some of the proposed landscaping details. A site visit was conducted and confirmed the site is a vacant dirt lot. There are no trees or shrubs where the proposed new residence will be sited, and therefore no trees will be removed. The proposed landscaping in relation to the size of the lot is minimal and includes some trees, including oak trees and various shrubs. All proposed landscaping materials are low to moderate water use, and the proposed species are specified in the landscaping plan of the project plans. Overall, the proposed landscaping meets the intent of the hillside ordinance. Here's a copy of the civil plans. Due to the sloped lot and vehicular access requirements, the applicant has requested that the site be graded in order to make the site feasible for residential development. In order to do this, the applicant has located the home on the flattest portion of the site. In addition, the rear yard entry is located on the 2nd floor. The project will result in 357 cubic yards of cut and 256 cubic yards of fill, resulting in a net export of only 101 cubic yards. It is important to note that no grading is proposed in the crestline zone of protection. Per the city municipal code, the development plan with grading in excess of 500 cubic yards requires that the Planning Commission review the proposed grading plan for approval. If approval is recommended, such conditions as are reasonably necessary may be included. Next slide, please. On this slide, I wanted to summarize the main hillside development standards the proposal needs to meet. This is also table 3 in the attached staff report. The proposed residence will be 1.5 story with a max height of 27 feet and will be 5,998 square feet of living area, which is compliant with the hillside's standard of a 6,000 square foot maximum and 27-foot height limit. The proposed total impervious surface will be 7,579 square feet, which is compliant with the hillside's maximum of 8,000 square feet. In summation, the proposal is consistent with all development standards for the hillside zoning ordinance. As part of the requirements of the hillside zoning ordinance, the applicant must demonstrate compliance with this section to preserve the natural quality of the crestline and the slopes as viewed from the valley floor. The applicant has demonstrated compliance by providing 3 diagrams in the project plans. The nearest points for this residence are viewpoints 2, 4, and 5, as designated in the municipal code. And this graphic is highlighting that the proposed house will be on the other side of these hills and therefore is compliant with the crestline zone of protection provisions. The bold line in this zoomed in section demonstrates the proposed wood fence in the distance, not the hillside, just for clarification. In other words, if you were to stand from these 3 viewpoints on the valley floor, looking up towards the hillside, an existing hill will block views of the proposed house from the valley floor. Next slide, please. Staff has confirmed that the project meets the findings associated with a site development permit as set out in the Milpitas Municipal Code. Those findings have been discussed in the staff report and are addressed in the resolution. And as previously stated, the project also includes an amendment to PUD 68 for this lot to allow for changes to exterior finishes and design from what was previously approved in 1992. Here are conceptual elevations for the original project on this lot, which included brick veneer and vertical wood siding. The image above is the conceptual front elevation for the original PUD, and the image below is of the new proposed elevation. Staff recommends amending the PUD for this lot to allow for an increase in residential square footage from 5,000 square feet to approximately 6,000 square feet, a modification for a 2-car garage instead of a 3-car garage, and proposed changes in exterior finishes. Staff has confirmed that the project meets the findings with a planned unit development as set out in the Milpitas Municipal Code. Those findings have been discussed in the staff report and are addressed in the resolution. The proposed project is categorically exempt from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, in accordance with CEQA guidelines section 15303A for new construction or conversion of small structures, and section 15183 for projects consistent with a community plan, general plan, or zoning. A notice was published in the Milpitas Post and at City Hall, as well as the city's website and online public forum. 15 postcards were sent to property owners within 300 feet of the project site. A sign was also posted at the project site, and no comments have been received to date. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission open and close the public hearing and adopt Resolution 24-030, recommending the City Council approve the site development permit number SD 23-0004 and Plan Unit Development Amendment PA 24-0001 to allow the construction of a single-family residence in the Hillside District, subject to the findings and conditions and the attached conditions of approval. This concludes staff's summary of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and the project applicant team is also there in person for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Biles, for the presentation. Would the applicant have any presentation for us tonight? Mr. Sandhu, that's right, yes. Would you kindly state your name if you would like to say something? You have to go to the dais, please. Yes.
Yeah, it's better now. Yeah, thank you, everybody. My name is Kulwant Sandhu. Yeah, I've lived in the Bay Area since I came to the US in '93. And this is, the entire Bay Area has been my work life. So like any other immigrant, we started off, start with, whatever work we could find. I was a truck driver for many years, driving coast to coast and taking care of my family, got married in '98. And we have two beautiful, we have four in the family. We have two boys. Sumer is my elder son. He's pursuing medicine. He studies at the University of Tennessee Medical School. He'll be a doctor in about 2 years. And my younger one is still in 6th grade. So when we were discussing where to upgrade our house, we live in Union City right now. So all of us could continue to live together, hopefully. And we all kind of look towards Milpitas because of its diversity, and also because Sumer is kind of looking at his career and starting practicing medicine here. So he was also of the view that this is a central place, and we wanted to kind of make this our home from his professional career point of view. And the location of the lot, as everybody probably knows here, is excellent. It's a home that we have always kind of dreamt of. My wife and I wanted to kind of retire, have a nice home for all the hard work we did. And for us, for my family, this is a realization of our American dream. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sandhu. That's very, how will I say that? We are so glad that you choose Milpitas, and also for a family to make this their home, definitely. I just had a personal question about the garage. People like bigger garages, like 3-car garage, and you only have 2-car garage. I guess it's the architect who's designed it, right? Yeah. Well, welcome. I hope you could, pass all the requirements that you can make this your home and your American dream. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. Bias? Yes, Commissioner Kong.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. So, in this particular estate, is there going to be a HOA, that is going to be enforcing residential rules and architectural rules?
Yes, there will be an HOA for the Terra Vista lots.
Do they have any regulations on the architectural designs, and have you gotten the approval from the HOA for the design that we are reviewing here?
Mr. Sandhu, would you mind answering the questions at the dais so it could be spoken into the record? Thank you. Community members online cannot hear.
Yeah, it's a small HOA. We are a community. We have 5 total, 6 homes in that. And so I've spoken with the members. So they're on kind of everybody's in agreement with the design of it.
So has it been approved by the HOA? Question.
Not formally,
I see.
but everybody's in agreement. We have discussed it through the process, and they're fully aware of the size of the house and the design.
So I have a follow-up question. So within this HOA, will there be on-street parking beyond the parking that you are having on the lot? You have 2 garage, 2 driveway. Will there be additional on-street parking in the community, or for gas? There are gas parking. Do you know if there will be additional parking?
I mean, for our family, I don't think we need any more parking than we have. But on the street, I'm not sure if there'll be any additional parking. But because there's a court towards the end, so there might be room for some parking over there. But there's no designated parking on Terra Vista.
Yeah, I bring this up is because in the event that you are going to be hosting a party where you have gas and so on, will it impact the neighboring, the neighborhood, right? Because if there is no on-street parking, even, within the community, it might overflow into the main road that leads up to the estate, right? So, and I don't know if, maybe Randy can also help with, are there on-street parking requirements for this estate?
No, there are no additional parking requirements for this lot.
Can I clarify, because I live in the same neighborhood? So, on Country Club Drive itself, there is plenty of parking. People park on the street, which is right next to you.
Yes, yes.
And even inside on your road also, there should be some parking allowed. On the
Yeah.
side.
Yes, I believe so.
At least on one side of the two sides, yeah.
Yeah, I believe so, because there's only 4 homes over there. So I don't see any traffic or congestion issue over there as far as that goes.
I appreciate Commissioner Gupta, kind of clarifying that there are on-street parking available. The other question I have is, this is for Randy. You mentioned that lot 2, lot 3, lot 2, lot 2 and 6 have been approved. So do you know if there has been any amendments to their PUD for those lots that were approved?
Yes, lot 2 and 6 have been approved. Lot 6 is a little lower in elevation than Terra Vista, so I didn't include it in this diagram. But lot 4 did have a PUD amendment to address the changes in architecture. I don't believe it required a change for I don't believe it required an amendment for the change in parking.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Kong. Anybody else for Mr. Sandhu?
Yeah,
Yes,
I have
Commissioner Gupta.
a couple of questions or comments. Regarding the fence material, maybe it looks like a small issue or question, it's not an issue. You decided to go with wood. Any reason you went with wood instead of iron?
And no, it's just because that's pretty much the standard to use wood. Okay. Good plan? Sorry.
It's the planning and staff
Oh,
recommendation.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Planning
There
and-
was a comment written that exceptions are allowed for metal fences. That's why I asked the question. If you'd gone for iron, probably would have been approved anyway. Because there was a comment there in the report.
Okay.
So, other question I have is, you said the impervious surface area is 7,579. That calculation, it seems low to me, because by the time you have a patio of 3,000 plus square feet, and then you're going to add an ADU, you have driveway, you have a house of 6,000 square feet, of course, is 1.5 story. To me, it sounds like it should add up to a lot more. So could somebody share the calculation?
Yeah, Mo can probably get that.
So as a matter of fact, this 7,000,
Can you please state your name for the record?
my name is Mohammed, I'm the designer of the project. So the total square footage for the impervious area is 7,595. And the reason that it's like a little bit low to you, because we have like proposed pervious square footage. Like the driveway is not impervious, it's actually pervious. Some of the walkways are pervious, they're not impervious. So the material we use, they actually absorb the water. So they're exempt from the impervious calculations.
What kind of material is that? I mean, I'm
They're
curious.
pervious like pavers,
Okay.
so they actually absorb the water.
Correct, Mr. Lee? I mean, there can be a paver surface which is not impervious?
Yes, there are pervious pavers, but also our engineering team will confirm that during the building permit stage. There are very specific requirements to be categorized as pervious pavers, and the city staff will make sure that that's met.
Okay, that actually probably will add up then, it clarifies. But the other thing is the back patio is over 3,000 square feet, it's a huge patio. So is that, are you planning to enclose that somehow with something, or it will remain open?
So the back patio, part of it is covered and part of it is not covered, but they're all open. So three side of the patio will be open. There is no enclosement for the rear patio that we have on the plans.
Okay. Because once you cover it, then it's considered part of the conditioned
No.
area, right?
It's considered part of the condition area. It's covered and enclosed. And as long as the sides are open, it's not part of the conditioned space.
Okay. And the ADU you're going to build later and make a separate presentation on that. The ADU is not part of this proposal.
As far as I know, Randy can say exactly what's gonna happen with ADU, but as far as I know, the ADU is exempt from getting the planning commission approval. But whatever the rules is, we're gonna follow the rules. We're gonna play by the rules.
Okay, all right,
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you for a comment. Any other comments from the commissioners?
I have one comment to make for Mr. Sandeep.
Commissioner
and the team.
Awasthi, go ahead.
Thank you. Since you did not get the HOA approval, but I am sure they must have approved it. There are 4 persons over there. And the postcards were sent to everyone in the 300 feet area. So my suggestion would be, it would be plausible if you could get a written confirmation from the HOA so that tomorrow something doesn't come up and then somebody complains to the planning and things can get a bit in the way of your making the project if you have already made some headway. So you never know, things can change later on. So it's always better to run everything through them in writing. Just a suggestion from my side.
Yes, sure. That's well
Thank you.
taken.
Mr. Bias has something to comment on that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to provide a little bit more context regarding the impervious and impervious coverage. So the driveway, the walkways, and the patio all have pervious pavers. So for example, the patio in the rear, that is approximately 3,000 square feet, but it is all pervious pavers. So it does not count towards the permeable or the impermeable lot coverage.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have a question for Mr. Bias. Randy, I know there were 2 other properties that has already been developed, right? Two other homes, correct?
They have been entitled, yes,
They've
but
been
they have
entitled.
not
They've been
been
entitled.
constructed.
For these particular ones, do we have a study about the soils and everything so that it can, like for the safety of those who are going to have their homes there? Do we usually require like some study of the soil and its foundational strength to carry big homes like this?
Yeah, that is correct.
So we do, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. Planning Director, yes.
Typically, we ask for a preliminary geotechnical report during the planning phase and then get the design level geotech report during the building permit phase. And we'll confirm all that.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. That's great to know because so that we would know also, that our planning team here it takes into consider everything prior to be able to bring this up to us. And later on, of course, we will all have those requirements for the homeowners association, but definitely we have the rules and requirements. Any other comments?
Chair, if I may, on that issue.
Yes.
Another part to just note, our hillside ordinance actually has a geotechnical requirement in it. This is one of the things that that Milpitas has adopted to make sure that those kinds of studies are done on the hillside properties.
Great, super. Thank you so much, Tony Creeds, for that. Before I open it to the public, yes.
Excuse me, I have something to update for the record. the HOA actually formally approved the design and for this lot. And we have a letter for the record.
Oh, that's great to know. Thank you so much, Mr. Sandhu. Yes, Commissioner Galang.
Yeah, Randy, I have a questions. Regarding about, it says here, project site is located over 50 east of the crest line. Can you show me that in the slides? What do you mean by 50 east of the crest line?
Oh, sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
The project site is located over 50 feet east of the crest line. Can you show me? And then
Yeah, so on the slide that you should be able to see on the bottom right of the map is the crest line within the city. So the hillside zoning ordinance does have designated viewpoints within the code as shown as stars in that map. So from those viewpoints, if there is a property within a certain distance of the crest line, that's considered the crest line zone of protection. So it basically can't be seen from the valley floor.
second question, is there a access for like access road for fire trucks for emergency purposes?
Yes, there is fire access along Terra Vista Court. And the home is close enough to Terra Vista Court to not require any substantial changes for fire access.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Galang. That's good clarification. Any other comments before I open it to some, open the public hearing? So if there's none, thank you, Mr. Sandhu. And yes, I'd
You're
like to.
welcome.
I'd like to open now the public hearing. If there's anybody from the public who'd like to say a comment. Motion. Do I have to make a motion? It's open. Just go. So I'm opening it. They're not having any from the public for comment about this. Can I have a motion maybe to close this?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second the motion.
Roll call, please.
Yes, thank you. Commissioner Kong,
Aye.
Commissioner Colkins. Oh, I apologize. Mr. Colkins has recused himself. Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Wasti,
Aye.
Commissioner Galang,
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina Ashby,
Aye.
and Chair Albana.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liz. Listening, with what the staff has provided and also for the exemptions because of the new changes for this year since the 1992 design, it seems that this is a beautiful project. Yeah, it is. So do I have a motion? Any motion, please? And somebody.
I
put
make
up-
a motion to approve the project, and if it comes here on the screen, I can read it. Adopt resolution 24-030, recommending the city council approve the site development permit number SD 23-0004 and plan unit development amendment P-PA 24-0001 to allow the construction of a single family residence in the Hillside District, subject to the findings and attached conditions of approval.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Awasti for the motion and the second from Commissioner Galan. And I'd like to thank Mr. Bice for the great presentation, and Mr. Sandu, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Kong,
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Awasti,
Aye.
Commissioner Galang,
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina Ashby,
Aye.
and Chair Albana.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you and congrats. Maybe somebody can ask Commissioner Calkins to join us now for our next.
Congratulations.
agenda.
Congratulations,
Yes.
Mr. Sandhu.
Thank you, thank you. Can somebody get Commissioner Calkins? There you are. Thank you, Mr. Sandhu family, and all the best to your medical school. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Sumer. He wants to know the meaning of Sumer. मतलब ਦੱਸ ਦਿਓ Sumer. Good luck.
So we're very happy to have more families joining us in Milpitas. So our next item for our agenda tonight would be our new business, a study session through our Senior Special Projects Associate, Holly Pearson. Good evening, Holly. This is for our comprehensive zoning update, phase 2.
Good evening, Commissioners. I don't see an option here to turn on my video. My audio is on, but
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Just that
well, I don't know if I'm a panelist. I apologize, but if you can hear me, good evening. I'm joining you virtually, obviously, but here to introduce the study session for the second phase of the comprehensive zoning update. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Liz. Study session for this second phase of the comprehensive zoning ordinance update project. And our consultant, Lisa Wise Consulting, or LWC, is here to deliver the presentation, and then I will join for discussion and questions afterwards. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Jen Murillo, Director with LWC. Next slide, please. The presentation for tonight will cover an overview of the project and the outreach we've been doing. We'll also briefly touch on the online community survey that was recently completed, but then we're going to focus on policy topics and discussion questions we'd like to focus on this evening. After that, I'll wrap up and talk about next steps for the project. Next. So the zoning ordinance update is being conducted for a number of reasons. We are focusing on modernizing the city's zoning ordinance and also ensuring consistency across the city's policy documents, primarily focused on the general plan. We also will be making the zoning ordinance more user-friendly and promoting compact, mixed-use, transit-oriented development where appropriate. We conducted background research for this project and put together a recommendations report about a year ago. That report was presented to the Commission at that time, and it is available on the project's website. Next. The overall timeline for the zoning ordinance update is about 2.5 years. We started with that background review and research effort, which concluded with that background report we published a year ago. And the project itself is organized into 2 phases. The first phase was an expedited phase focused on establishing new zoning districts and updating the city's zoning map for the general plan and metro specific plan. That phase has concluded. Those new zoning districts and the zoning map are effective. So we are now focused on the comprehensive code update. This is the second phase, and we expect that to be completed around spring of next year, and expect to have community engagement and outreach throughout this process. Next. The outreach that this project includes is meetings with a technical advisory committee, which included key staff. We conducted stakeholder interviews. We have a zoning advisory group that's comprised of representatives from city commissions that we meet with, community workshops, and study sessions like this with the Planning Commission and also with City Council. All of the information for the project, including all of the outreach, is available on the project website, milpitaszoningupdate.org. Next. So just briefly, we conducted an online survey that was available for just over 3 weeks. It opened in late June and closed in mid-July. We received 83 responses for that survey. The survey was promoted via email blast on the project website. There were tables or pop-ups at Farmers Market, the library, senior center, and community center to engage the community and get feedback on topics relevant to the zoning update. Next slide. The folks that responded to the survey were predominantly residents and homeowners. Almost 60% had lived in Milpitas for over 10 years. And we had a mix of ages that also responded to the survey. Next slide. The survey covered a variety of topics. I'm not going to go into all of the topics tonight, but the full results of the survey are included in a report. That report was included in your packet. It is available on the project website as well. I will touch on certain questions and responses that are relevant to the discussion topics and questions we have tonight. Next slide. So the 4 policy topics we'd like to focus on this evening are parking requirements, non-conforming uses and buildings, sustainable building standards and incentives, and single-family residential design standards. So I'll speak to each of these topics before we get into the discussion. Next slide. Parking requirements, of course, will be addressed in the zoning ordinance update. And parking reform is occurring at the national level, across the state, also regionally, locally in the Bay Area. And parking reform is coming forth under various legislative actions and also policy framework. The city's housing element directs reducing parking requirements related to residential projects. The general plan, the climate action plan are all seeking to encourage different types of mobility other than private automobiles. So we're considering all of this framework when we look at how parking requirements should be addressed in the zoning ordinance. Now, we are seeing in different parking reform efforts across the country and in the state, we are seeing jurisdictions that are completely eliminating parking requirements. And we are not proposing or suggesting that something of that level be enacted in Milpitas. Now, the city has adopted the metro-specific plan. That is a specific plan focused around the most transit-oriented area of the city. And in that specific plan, that is an area where minimum parking requirements are no longer included in that area. However, looking citywide, our approach that we're suggesting is to be moderate and look at moderate reductions that are reasonable and appropriate considering legal parameters and policy framework. Now, even with moderate parking reductions or even eliminating parking requirements, that does not preclude a developer or project proponent from proposing or building more parking than is required. And we're not suggesting that the city limit that at this point. So if a developer comes forward and wants to provide additional parking for marketability of the project, for pricing, for attracting a certain tenant or tenants, that is not suggested to be precluded in the work that we're doing or recommending. Next slide. So when we're considering even moderate reductions to parking standards, we want to make sure we balance that out with other requirements. And that includes adding parking requirements for bicycle parking, short-term and long-term bicycle parking, including measures for transportation demand management, or TDM, which I'll speak to more specifically shortly. But those are measures that look at reducing the vehicle trips or demand of a project. Also, looking at providing options or alternatives that allow for the required number of parking spaces to be further reduced. The city's ordinance currently has some of these measures in it now. We're looking at refining those and expanding those to provide options to encourage more desirable formats of parking, like shared parking, off-site parking, car share parking, and encouraging parking spaces that may be more desirable, like EV, electric vehicle charging spaces, and additional parking spaces above what would be required. Next slide. So we wanted to provide some context as to why parking reform is happening. And in this case, the past way, parking reform is happening to basically achieve and work toward community goals for public health, goals for community design, goals for sustainability. And the past way that parking planning has been done has looked at past trends, previous trends, and using those previous trends to forecast or predict future demand. That approach has created this self-fulfilling prophecy of ample, generous parking supply, increasing the amount of sprawl and dispersed development patterns, which encourages vehicle use and thus then continues to grow the demand for parking. So in this case, generous parking supply is part of this cycle that leads to a dependency on the private automobile. Next slide. That approach, the old approach to parking, is something that is changing. And that old approach looked at or assumed that the approach of providing plentiful parking is the most desired approach. It strived to provide or maximize the supply of parking and minimize price. And what that resulted in was a really focused solution of having individual uses satisfy their peak parking needs on site. Next slide. And that approach is shifting. So the new parking approach, instead of being focused on the singular solution of providing parking, which can be inefficient, it can be costly, it can be contrary to community objectives, looks toward multiple or varied solutions that focus on efficient use of parking facilities and alternatives that can decrease the demand or need for as many vehicle trips. So from a zoning perspective, we're looking at those zoning solutions under this new parking approach that are appropriate and we can integrate into the zoning ordinance update. And those include the land use planning solutions, looking at mixed use, transit-oriented development, looking at transportation demand management, and alternative parking strategies. Next slide. So transportation demand management, or TDM. These are strategies that aim to reduce vehicle trips, so private vehicle trips, and reduce congestion without building additional roads or additional lanes. So TDM is typically implemented through new development, putting forth a plan, a TDM plan that identifies what TDM strategies that project will incorporate that is going to reduce the amount of vehicle trips that that project demands. Those TDM plans are typically required only for projects of a certain size where it's logical to institute TDM measures. And there are a lot of strategies that can be TDM strategies. So we asked in the survey questions about what types of TDM strategies does the community think is most appropriate in Milpitas. Next. So here the results were the identification of the most appropriate strategies for housing developments being requiring developers to pay funds toward or to actually build transit, pedestrian, or bike facilities, to connect the site to the existing pedestrian and bicycle networks, connecting to the site itself, and then transit pass subsidies for residents. For employee-generating developments, commercial, industrial, the most favored strategies, TDM strategies here, we're offering telecommuting and flex work schedules, providing on-site amenities, things like food service, cafes, daycare, that would reduce the amount of daily vehicle trips, and then also carpool or van pool programs for those projects. And 2/3, majority of respondents did support requiring TDM strategies for new projects that are a reasonable size to require. Next. In terms of alternative parking strategies, I think we have one slide before this. I'm sorry, thank you so much. In terms of alternative parking strategies, these are options offered and available to developers if they so choose to integrate them in their projects. And these are alternatives that aim to promote efficient land use, walking, biking, and reducing environmental impacts. You're talking about impervious surface for the last project, looking at ways we can reduce pavement and associated water quality impacts and similar ideas and desirable outcomes for community design. Next slide. So here we ask the community what types of alternative parking strategies are appropriate in Milpitas, and many respondents expressed support for a variety of alternative parking strategies that could reduce on-site parking, but the most favored were providing off-site parking with connections to the project site, whether that be pathways or bike lanes or transit, also providing carpool spaces, and also being located close to transit. Next. Okay, so then moving on to non-conforming uses and buildings, this is our next topic, and to cover just what non-conforming means, what those are. Non-conforming encompasses uses and buildings that were legally established or built under an older version of the zoning ordinance, but do not conform to current zoning standards or requirements. So, and that is because zoning standards can change. Zoning standards were revised or have been updated since that use was established or that building was built. So this could be uses that were allowed under a previous version of the code are no longer allowed. It could be a building that was built in compliance with setbacks and now encroaches into a new setback or a setback that has been increased. Zoning standards change. It is absolutely normal and common for non-conforming uses and buildings to exist in cities. It's again common, and it's just something that is treated through provisions in the zoning ordinance. So how these uses and buildings are addressed are just described in the zoning ordinance itself. Next slide. So we asked questions about this in the survey. We asked largely related to parking nonconformities and asked if the city should be flexible in allowing new uses if parking cannot be met. Very split in this case, 38% no, 37% yes. We asked further, should the city be flexible in allowing new uses in buildings when there's no parking? We had a vast majority here saying no in that case, but we did have a quarter of respondents saying that it would be acceptable when it's not feasible or desirable to build new parking on the site. Next slide. And so there's pros and cons to different approaches to non-conforming regulation. Being less restrictive, you have your non-conforming uses and buildings remaining in place longer. They may not get phased out as quickly, but it can offer opportunities for new uses and businesses to be able to have other opportunities for locations. It can result in older buildings being filled. So there are some, some advantages in being less restricted, depending on the perception or opinion on the extremity of the nonconformities, how quickly you want to phase them out. More restrictive standards will phase out non-conforming buildings and uses sooner, typically. However, there can be a transition period where you have periods of time that non-conforming buildings may remain vacant for longer because they're non-conforming and can't get a new tenant or use in place. So we're interested to hearing the council's thoughts on balancing the advantages and disadvantages with different approaches to non-conforming uses and buildings. Next slide. Sustainable building standards and incentives is our next topic. And here the zoning ordinance can include incentives and use the zoning ordinance as a tool to achieve desired outcomes. So development standards, zoning requirements do impact potential profitability of a project. So that is something the city can leverage. In this case, for sustainable standards, the state establishes the California Green Building Code. The city has adopted a REACH code for transitioning to all electric, as much as that can be implemented or enforced, legally. But there are standards that the city has in terms of green building that are required regardless. So the zoning ordinance going further, going beyond those requirements, is completely optional and at the city's discretion. Next slide. We asked on the survey opinions about sustainability incentives, and the majority, the larger group of respondents, actually did not support including zoning incentives for sustainability. 35% did support those incentives. In identifying potential incentives that could be included for sustainability, the most favored was supporting streamlined development review. There was some support for 30% for additional building height or density. Next slide. So here, the question for the commission is, considering the requirements of the building code versus zoning, does it make sense to incorporate incentives through zoning? And if so, what those might be, potentially streamlined approvals, or these could be done through other incentives that live outside the zoning code. For instance, something like fee reductions or something of that regard that wouldn't actually be codified in the zoning code. But this is coming toward the city because of the climate action plan, looking for providing additional incentives above those building code requirements. Next slide. Okay, wrapping up here on the last topic. Thanks for your patience. This is the last topic, single-family residential design requirements. So here we're talking about single-family homes. So in this case, single-family homes are largely or predominantly located in those single-family zones, the R1 zones. Those are mainly showing up in the yellow tones and colors on the zoning map. And the city has design standards now that apply to multifamily projects, projects with 2 or more units, but not to single-family homes. Thanks, Liz. Next slide. And so we asked a question on the survey in terms of what design standards might be appropriate to apply to single-family homes. And the most favored options were privacy requirements for second-story windows near neighboring properties, restrictions on certain exterior building materials, and also the requirement for treating each side of the building with a similar level of design treatment. We call that 360-degree design. Just to note, 1/4 of respondents did identify that no design standards should be applied to single-family homes. Next. So there are a variety of standards that the commission could consider or provide feedback on as to whether or not they find them appropriate for single-family standards. They can range from smaller scale in terms of limiting the amount of blank space on exterior walls to that full 360-degree design treatment and regulating exterior building materials, but also options related to privacy and standards for entrances, how entrances are oriented, whether entrances have protection from weather. Next slide. So the questions we want to focus on tonight related to parking first is just input on the overall direction related to reduced parking requirements. Also feedback on the transportation demand management strategies and alternative parking strategies. For non-conforming, we're looking at feedback on balancing, using a balanced approach in terms of regulating non-conforming uses in buildings. For sustainable building standards, first, just should sustainability incentives be included in zoning? And if so, any feedback on potential incentives? And then lastly, just input on any appropriate design standards that we should consider for single-family homes. Next slide. So wrapping up, for this project, we do have a couple meetings next month. We have a council study session and a zoning advisory group meeting. Those are the last 2 meetings we have where we want to focus on policy topics like this before we release the draft ordinance. So that updated draft zoning ordinance is targeted to be available in late November for public review. And that will follow with outreach in December and meetings in early 2025 to get feedback and talk about the draft. And then with adoption hearings slated for late spring, looking at having the updated code in place effective in summer of 2025. So that's it for me. Thank you very much for walking through these topics with us. We'd be happy to answer any questions and look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any questions, Planning Commissioner? Or points of clarification?
Okay. All right.
Commissioner Gupta.
So my first question relates to the sample size of the survey. There are only 83 responses for a population of 83,000. Is that a good enough sample size from a statistical point of view?
This is not a statistically valid sample. I mean, we do know that, we recognize that. We do our best efforts to get the word out and get involvement and feedback. This provides a gauge in terms of where the community is coming from on certain topics, but by no means is it identifying absolutely where we expect to go or recommend to go on certain topics, but it helps us get more input from the community. And for reference, I mean, if you think about a workshop that you had and you have 83 people show up to the workshop. I'm not sure how many you're getting at the HODs. I know those are probably well attended, but 83 folks, coming to a meeting or giving feedback via a survey is important and it's relevant. And we appreciate the time that those 83 folks spent to let us know their opinions on these zoning issues.
So I agree it's better than nothing, but at the same time, can you really rely on that study? I mean, in terms of the results, because it's a very small sample and the results mostly that came out seem to be more of a common sense to me. I mean, I don't know if they really show anything significant in terms of, picking one issue, one point versus another. A lot of the decisions or outcomes were very similar between yes and no.
Well, to me, that's an important indicator, right? In that we're not relying on those 83 respondents to tell us, now we know how we are going to deal with, say, non-conforming buildings and uses. We are, as professionals in this industry, we can give our recommendations, but we're looking to, ultimately the commission and the council to make some of these decisions, which may be tough. But we are not relying on the responses from this survey to make the decision for us. It is just information that we can consider as we move forward with this project. And we will have many more opportunities. We don't have the draft ordinance available yet. It is going to be published in late November. We'll have community input and comment, and then we can, continue to get that feedback and input to inform how we decide to move forward on certain topics.
So moving on, so are these findings different than what you find in other cities of similar size in the Bay Area or otherwise in the state? I mean, are we finding something different, or you could have just taken studies from other cities and adopted those?
Well, so this wasn't a study. These are, 83 folks' opinions on these specific topics. And we do find that this does vary. Every community is unique. Every community has its own identity, its own priorities, its own goals. So I don't believe this survey and the results would be replicated across other jurisdictions in California.
If I may add, I think those are good questions, and I understand where you're coming from. We would have loved to see hundreds, if not thousands, of responses. I do think it was not for a lack of effort. So Holly could potentially go into maybe some of the efforts that we took to try to spread the word, but for whatever reason, some topics or projects are maybe not, people aren't as opinionated as others. This one, that's the response we got. But I think these are all good questions because 83 is not a high number, but it is still, we didn't know what we would get going into it. So I think a survey is still a good move, and we will continue to do outreach to try to find ways to better engage our communities. But we definitely have tried.
I wanted to ask a question to Holly and Jennifer. Would you want us to comment as commissioners on each of these four tonight? Give something that we feel we can give. I'll start first with parking requirements. Is that basically also a good goal to do that tonight?
I would suggest, I think it would be helpful if we went through the four topics one by one. We can spend more time or less time depending on opinions and interest and level of input. But it would be helpful to at least touch on each of them, and we can go into more detail on the ones that the public and the commissioners wish to discuss in more detail.
If I may suggest, perhaps similar to the public hearings items, we could focus on asking the questions and then have a period for the public to comment, because we do have some speaker cards. And then after, if we can go through each item systematically, if that sounds okay.
That's what I was going to propose.
Thank you.
Thank you. Planning Director, all right.
Oh, if any, I guess the time now then would be for the commissioners if there are any additional questions for staff. and consultants.
Commissioner Awasi?
Yeah, what mode of communication was used to let the residents or every household know in Milpitas that this is happening, or the survey reached every household? What type of, some letters were sent, so some people are not on the internet, and all the people do not know, they do not see the flyers. So what are the modes which were made to make sure that it reached every household, so we got some more people or more responses?
I can speak to that. So we had various methods that we used to get the word out about the survey. We have an email list for the project. I'm just going to start with that because that's always our first go-to communication tool. So announced it through the email project list. We worked with the city's communications office to include an announcement in the city newsletter, to announce it on the various social media channels. So Nextdoor, Facebook, X, YouTube. I don't know all of them. I think I covered most of them. And then we did as much in-person presence as we possibly could going out into the community. So we had, I believe, 3 consecutive weeks where someone from the planning department attended the farmers market, the Milpitas Farmers Market on Sunday, and had a table and was talking to customers as they passed through the farmers market. We did similar tabling at a few other public locations. I know the library, I believe the senior center, which is where you are this evening, and the community center. And we also did outreach through our zoning advisory group and asked the members of the zoning advisory group. So those are members of commissions and boards, 1 or 2 members from each of several city commissions. So please help get the word out. Send this to your neighbors, send this to your friends and people who live in Milpitas. So it's not a perfect world. You know, there's no way that we can go door to door or put a flyer under each household's door, but we tried as many different ways as we could to get the word out, both virtually and in person, and just within the constraints of time and staff that we have.
Thank you for all the efforts taken. Were any direct mailers sent to the household also?
Oh, I'm sorry, was that it's a little difficult to hear the voices in the room.
Were any direct mailers sent to the household for this zoning?
We did not do a mailing for this. We sometimes do mailings for certain types of projects or initiatives, but we did not in this case.
Also, for the newsletters, we included in the newsletter, and it goes out to, I believe, every residence or household in Milpitas. But we understand a newsletter usually has other news as well. So.
Thank you.
Planning director, that's right. I always receive it. I always read it. Yeah, I receive that. Yeah. So, Commissioner Kong, please.
I have a question regarding the survey as well. So what is the period that you have started and when will it end? So that way we can understand how much more effort needs to be invested into getting more participants, in the survey.
I'm not sure if you're asking about the time frame for this survey itself, or just for public input more broadly on the zoning update.
For the survey, the online survey that you have, I understand that it was held earlier this, kind of on your diagram there.
Yes.
End of 2023, right? So is this still open? Is this a continuous survey that residents can still go on and provide their inputs? And if so, when will be the end date?
I see. So the exact dates, I think we're on one of the slides earlier, but it was something like June 21st to July 14th. So it was about 3 weeks. It's not, yeah, there we go. I got it right. So it is not still open. It was envisioned to be a fixed duration, and then we would be able to report out on results. But your point is taken if there are other ways that we can. So one way I would add with it, and it may not be the method that everyone would gravitate toward, but we have the project website. It's milpitaszoningupdate.org. That the URL is on that slide there, and there's an input form where people can send comments via the web, and they come directly to staff, to myself and other staff. So there are opportunities for people to comment, but as far as outreach and we honestly would love ideas from the commission about ways to get the word out more broadly. We do as much as we can. We do the best we can, but we always want more people to be involved also. So between now and the adoption hearings, if you have suggestions for outreach, we would love to hear those.
Is there a cost to keep the Survey Monkey, survey active for a longer period of time? I understand that you have an input form, but if the input form does not include the same type of details that the survey has, I'd like to understand if there's cost involved to just extend the survey.
Actually, yeah, Jen, can you speak to the LWC? They launched the survey, so if you could answer that, Jen, please.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for the question. So we did close the survey. So the survey itself has been completed, archived. The survey results have been published in our report. So we weren't envisioning reopening the survey. As Holly mentioned, the intention was to be able to report out on the results we received and then be able to use that input to move forward with drafting the ordinance. So if we were to reopen it, yes, it's not covered in our current scope or cost, to directly answer your question. So if LWC was to reopen it and manage it and run it, it would be additional cost.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you, Liz, for those points. Anyone will start with topic number 1 on parking requirements. Anything that you'd like the commissioners to maybe say, any additional input briefly? Commissioner Gupta.
Okay.
And Commissioner Gala.
So in terms of parking, obviously, the goal is to reduce parking requirements as much as possible. But that's a function of what additional modes of transportation you're going to provide to the residents. When somebody wants to, let's say, buy groceries half a mile away, or 1 mile away, so without having your own vehicle, how is it going to work? I mean, you really need to have a very large variety of modes of transportation, maybe a lot more buses, bus transportation. And just to give you a little background, you know that the country that I came from, a town like Milpitas will have 10 times the residents. So this problem has been solved in many of those countries, or maybe mismanaged, but it has been addressed. So there is something over there called three-wheelers, which very cheap mode of transportation, where short distances you can cover a very small amount of charges. For example, if it's less than $5 to go to a grocery store from your apartment building, then having some kind of transportation like that will help, because even going by bus, it may not be practical because you have to carry a load of groceries, I mean, as an example, or any other shopping. So the point is that the city has to think creatively how to create a lot more modes of transportation for short distances, bus routes and cheap vehicles or cheap taxis, you can say. So that's just some of the ideas.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Gupta. Commissioner Galang, did you have something to say before
Yeah,
I ask the
I
public
have
to?
questions with regards to information sending to the community, or by email or by mailing. Um, is that the survey written in English only? We are in this. We are in a diverse community here. I would suggest to write in different language, either Vietnamese, Filipino, or Spanish.
Yes, thank you. The point is well taken. This particular survey was offered in English only. And we do recognize there are a lot of languages spoken in Milpitas. We do have on the project website information in other languages, including Vietnamese and Spanish, and I believe Tagalog and Chinese. But the survey was only available in English. So your point is taken. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you, Tony. Commissioner Galang. Let me, Commissioner Kong.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask for clarification. Is this the time that we provide inputs that are different than what we've already discussed in the kind of direct briefing that we have had with Holly and Jay? Or this is, I just wanted to understand if the inputs that we've already given through the direct briefing has been captured, or we need to officially mention them again here on record?
The latter, please. Yeah, this is the public forum in which official input would be formally will be on the record and will be taken into consideration for our work moving forward.
So, do we do this now or after we hear public comments?
Yeah, just a minute. Let me clarify that, Holly. So when you met with each of us commissioners, we had some input. We don't have to repeat it tonight. That has been already noted.
It would be helpful if you would share that input this evening. When we have conversations that are not part of public meetings, they may be, staff can take that input, but the reason we have the study session is so that it can be a public discussion and so that the comments can be formally registered and discussed with community members as well.
Holly. Commissioners, just a minute. I'd like to address the public here that some of your comments, I just wanted to clarify, those who wanted to comment on the housing opportunity, this is not part of the agenda, so I cannot do that now. But thank you, Ravi and Vivir, right? That should have been done on the first, right, public.
Yeah, to clarify, if you wanted to speak on another project that's not this project, we do have a public forum period in the beginning of the meeting typically, where that would be an appropriate time where you can speak on any item you want to before the planning commission. But this moment right now, or for the public comments, it's intended for comments on this project. So you may still speak if you want to, if it's related to this project. And if you do want to still speak about the other project, please feel free to attend. I know I announced earlier that we will not probably be having planning commission meetings in September, but in October, please feel free to come out and make comments on the housing opportunity districts at that time during the public forum period. So I do apologize we can't hear those comments now, but I would say if you still have comments regarding this project, please feel free to come up and speak on it.
Thank you, Jay. Let me ask Srivan Parlari. Yes, is this something that has to do with this particular, or the zoning, right? So, okay, you can share in the podium now. You basically have what, 3 minutes? Thank you for sharing. Good evening. introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Sriram Potluri. I've been a Milpitas resident for about 4 years now. I live on 1264 Olympic Drive, right. So like some of the council members had brought up, right, I'm really surprised that there was only 83 people who responded to the feedback. I'd like to think that's largely to do with the period of the survey, which is 3 weeks, and right in the middle of the summer break, where a lot of people are not on top of their day-to-day emails or on vacations and things like that. And also the reason I say that is we had more than 83 people just for the community night out in our little park. And there were like 40 or 50 such events in Milpitas in a single night, right? So I'm really surprised that the survey reached only 83 people, or basically got only 83 responses, right? I mainly want to express a couple of grievances, right? I feel the process is definitely went by procedure, right? But it seems to be out of touch with the reality of the situation in Milpitas, starting with the locations that have been chosen for zoning updates. The two locations that have been chosen are on both ends of Park Victoria Drive, right? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, this is not about the particular zoning project.
This project is not proposing any zone changes for any areas. I think you're referring to the housing opportunity districts. So if you could please try to keep your comments to this project. But I would be happy to speak with you offline, and we would be happy to accept comments on the HODs in future meetings during the public forum period. So I do apologize. I know you want to speak about that. But.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. May I ask Pallavi Pandit? Yes. And this is about this one.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can you please bring in the slide that that was asking for the feedbacks, and thank you for time here. I think I was one of the respondents in that one too. Slide 12 or something. Parking requirements, sustainability. I had some comments in there. Hello, everyone. The specific inputs that you are needing, that slide 12 or something, before the next steps. Hi, Holly, Jennifer, thank you for presenting. Hello, Planning Commission members, thank you for inputs here. Glad to be here as a citizen of beautiful Milpitas with open spaces and enough parks that were planned by wonderful citizens who lived before us and planned it out for us. We love living here because of the open spaces and the fresh breath of air I can take in my beautiful house. So one thing, parking context, I saw what stood out at me, and in this one is enforcement. And if you go, and those are the inputs you're looking for, if you go to further slides here, parking and sustainability stood out at me, because when we are planning these things, parking, if there is no ample parking, so what are we truly proposing? I think Mr. Praveen also hit that, like how we will manage it. Are they going to park in our neighborhoods, or what alternatives would be provided to them? Incentives would be provided to them because infrastructure is a major item at that point to address the parking situations. If we want to create a greener world and we want to say people do not drive and use public transport and all that, it also does not account for time value of money. People would like a vehicle, like I do, to be able to save time as well. Not all of us, like most of us also go to office. So 60% said that like telecommuting is an option for them, but not for our family. We do go to work as well. Please, there is, no, I think 15 or 16, where you're looking for inputs, that slide, parking requirements, sustainability.
I think it's this, I'm so sorry to interrupt, the slide before next slide, next step. So I think it's like the third to last slide. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, almost at the end. So one was the time value of money that stood out at me, and that was addressed also by Mr. Gupta, saying that we will have to make the infrastructure robust enough to really make this work. So I want my inputs on that one to be noted, that when we are designing these projects, we should look at parking requirements very closely. And what I heard was one of the comments there was there would be it would be developer discretion for parking to encourage. I think that's where enforcement is needed rather than policing the people and investing policing time on that enforcement part of it. Police is pretty busy depending, like given the crime in our communities already. We shouldn't use that time just enforcing parking. That's my input. And second input I had was sustainability incentive. It truly broke my heart to see those rejected from public perspective, living in this era where climate change should be top priority for organizations and cities. And my input would be to include sustainability incentives in zoning. We love Milpitas for that reason, because of the greenery, the beautiful hills, and the fresh air, as I mentioned. So those incentives, my input would be they should be included. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Thank you.
Alabi, thank you. Planning Director, any comment?
I haven't filled out the card, but is that maybe it's a public forum, so can I just speak up or?
You could speak. Would you also mind filling out a card just so that we have it on our record?
Sure,
Should,
I can do that.
yeah, that'd be great. And you could speak also, sir. If it's on the topic, yes?
Yeah, same thing.
Okay.
So,
You
Okay.
can, please turn it on. So and it's red.
oh, it's on.
So
I
weird.
also wanted to confirm with Ravi and Vivek if you still wanted to make comments about other topics, or because I know you wrote on here NCMU, but if you want to talk about other topics, you can still come up and do that later. Okay, then we'll go to you guys after.
Okay. So my name is Vishal Gandhi. I'm a Milpitas resident for almost 10 plus years now. And I also serve on another commission within the city. I was just stopping by just because somebody asked me to come over. So I was just coming over. The thing I didn't like it when I reviewed the results about the survey is 83 people. And that's including business. And I was just having a big laugh in the background. I was like, is that really a reality of the city? When you talk about 83 responding, and that's also including businesses. That's like nothing from a percentage perspective. So I don't think so that, yes, they did put a lot of effort, but I don't think so there is, oh, this is on, it says red. Oh, okay. Is that better? Is that better? Okay. So that's what kind of just got me surprised that what kind of outreach have we done? Just that got, even with the 3 weeks, you just got 83 responses. Means that's pretty low number, right? And then when I look at the results and everything, like other commissioners mentioned on the planning side as well, I didn't see anything related to say like senior citizens and people with the other things, because when you talk about senior citizens going to the grocery stores or even with that, they are the one who is going to be doing the heavy lifting. They're not going to be walking with the groceries in their hand or something like that. And then when we talk about like the smart ride, which is available within Milpitas, it's been in use for 2 years, but it's not, I have not been able to like request it a single time. Every time I've gone, either this website crashes or it just says it's not available in your area. So I think I would just say that just look into all those things because those things did not cover in the survey. That's what basically, if you want to make it Milpitas better and greener, and then I think that's what options should be available to the better part of the community. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. May I call, is it Ravi? If you wanted to speak about? No. Then how about Vivek? Can you?
Is that what? Oh, yeah. Yeah, good evening, and thanks for the opportunity, giving me the opportunity to speak here. My name is Vivek Suryanarayana, and I'm a relatively new resident of Milpitas. It's been close to 4 years since living here. You know, my daughter goes to Senate Elementary, and we just love living here, first of all. The point I want to raise is that the first thing, I agree with Vishal and what Sriram brought up, and Mr. Gupta brought up as well, like 83 out of 83,000 residents, it's 0.001% of the people. I mean, it's practically unusable. And whatever the opinion, it's got to do a better reach out and reach more people. And the second point I wanted to raise was the TDM solutions, proposed solutions. So I don't know what data points it's based on. I assume it's going to be on the 2021 survey, the study that was done. But in the last 4 years, from 2020 to 2024, there has been a wild swing in the way of life in everybody, basically, you know, because of the pandemic, post-pandemic. It was that I'm pretty sure that 60% of the people who are telecommuting, I'm pretty sure the vast majority are commuting to work now. I mean, I myself was telecommuting in 2021. Not a single day, I didn't have to travel at all. But my wife, she works in healthcare. She does not have the luxury of working from home. So 2021, she used to travel from Milpitas all the way to Redwood City in under 40 minutes, 35 minutes tops. And now it's 90 minutes. And, you know, so I think this whole thing needs a relook. It needs, you know, take the current considerations, and, you know, it probably needs, you know, better planning. I think I'm pretty sure all the citizens are willing to work with the city to come up and solve the problem. And I hope there's more engagement, and there's, you know, people are more willing to listen to the people and come up with better solutions, basically. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek. Is there anybody else? So maybe I'll direct it to the commissioners.
Chair, if I may, before we start into the discussion,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify for the record, commissioners are not required to restate things that they have said to staff in any kind of briefings. Anything that they want to state for the record, points that they want to make, anything that they want to discuss at this meeting is each commissioner's choice as to what they want to point out during this meeting. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Fritsch.
And I also want to just re-clarify, right now, you cannot speak on anything other than this item. There was a period earlier in the meeting where you could have spoken about the NCMU, but that has already passed. But I'd be happy to meet with you, talk more about it, and we do welcome you for future meetings. If you are able to make it for the public forum, you'll have your time. I do apologize, but that's, yeah.
Thank you, Planning Director. Commissioners, as Attorney Fritsch had clarified, something that an additional that came across your mind.
Can you put the same slide back on? Yeah. So non-conforming uses in buildings, that subject matter is not very clear to me. So are you suggesting that buildings which are non-conforming or they're with old standards, that you're going to force them to bring them up to current standards?
If I may respond to that, no one here is suggesting that any buildings that do not comply with current standards be forced to be removed or you know, demolished in a certain amount of periods. Some cities do actually do that. We're not suggesting that that be an approach taken in Milpitas. What we're trying to gauge is that should the city be more lenient and flexible in how non-conforming uses and buildings are treated in the city? Would you be more open to allowing buildings that don't comply with standards to remain in place for, you know, a longer period, be able to, or I shouldn't say that, to be able to be improved, expanded, enlarged, modified? Right now, the current code limits, say, for example, you're a non-conforming building, in a commercial zone. You can only expand your building by 30% of the floor area, and you have to get a conditional use permit to do that. Is that appropriate? Do you think that's reasonable, or should the city be more flexible in allowing those buildings to be improved, expanded? Or do we think the way that it's treated today seems reasonable and appropriate, considering that they don't comply with zoning standards?
So my recommendation will be to be more flexible and be less restrictive. I think that's the term you used. And give them the options to make changes and conform to new standards, but that should be their option. We should not enforce new standards on owners of old buildings, which they conform to the standard when the buildings were built. So I think it'd be unreasonable to be very strict with them. So that's my recommendation.
Can I add to that topic? So since we're talking about non-conforming uses, and also with the addition of the single-family design standards going hand in hand, especially since we are introducing, new design standards for single-family to consider, various objective standards, I would personally want to provide the input that we should exempt single-family homes from to allow them to be non-conforming uses for the existing ones. Only new single-family residents should be subjected to the new standards. Whereas for the commercial, there could be a time frame for for them to move into meeting the conforming uses and building standards and so on, but it should not be enforced without consideration that there is going to be significant economic impact to the owners.
Thank you, Commissioner Kong. That was from Commissioner Kong. Any comments? Commissioner Hawkins.
Yeah, this one might be for Jay. You might know. I'm just curious because talking about non-conforming, if they did want to do some remodeling on their building and expand it in a little way, doesn't that require going through planning in that process as well? Or is there only if they exceed a certain amount of square footage or something?
Our current standard requires a conditional use permit, which would come to this planning commission for action if it exceeds 30% floor area expansion. But if it stays under that, we would still review it. It's like some kind of feedback, I think. I don't know. Hello? Okay, that sounds better. Oh, it's back. Projects under the threshold would still require planning approval. It just wouldn't go to the planning commission.
Commissioner Hawkins or Commissioner Kong, you have something to say?
I was gonna add on item number 3, the sustainable building standards and incentives. I appreciate the public comment, especially with the climate action plan and so on. I really want to also see that we do consider including the streamlined process, because that would be, something that would be a huge incentive both for the city as well as for the project proponents to kind of speed things up as an incentive to include the sustainability recommendation and so on.
Question about when you say sustainable building, can we define that clearly? But I don't know if everybody understands the same way. I mean, are you talking about a building which will have all electric, no gas, and also solar heating, solar energy for electricity? I mean, what are the main key points of a sustainable building?
I think those examples you provided are perfect examples. Here we're focusing on the energy efficiency that goes above and beyond mandated requirements. So that transition to all electric, that wouldn't otherwise be required by the current building codes.
Thank you. I agree with Kong that we should encourage sustainable buildings in the future as much as possible. But again, it should not be absolutely a mandate, but it should be encouraged. Maybe there can be some incentives so that people can take care of the incentives and move towards sustainable buildings.
Anything else you want to add?
Just one question for clarity too on the last one, the single family residential design standards. And you were talking about the 360 design and apologies for my ignorance, but is there like a 270 design idea too, where, because if you got three sides that look one way for the public to see, but your backyard is a little bit different in that regard, is that incorporated into this, or I don't know flexibility with what you guys are thinking with that?
I have not worked on a 270, but hey, we can be flexible. I mean, this is your code. So absolutely. I mean, we're looking to you for what you feel is appropriate. And I understand what you're saying in terms of the rear portion of the building. Maybe there's just less concern or interest, or you could identify it to be another threshold of what's important to the community. That the same level of design treatment must be achieved on all sides of buildings or portions of buildings that are visible from the street. These standards are, it's up to the commission to, just report back to us on what you think is appropriate, and we would be happy to craft standards that kind of meet what you're trying to achieve. But I have not yet done 270. I like it.
If I could add, that's a great comment, because I think there's a way to achieve a certain level of care and attention to detail without necessarily trying to prescribe a same look on all four sides. So I think that's something that we can really think of as we put together the draft.
Great. A quick question for Holly also, or Jennifer. Would there be still time for the residents to be able to still complete some surveys, and can they just do that online?
Well, as Jen mentioned, as I mentioned, the survey, the results of which you have in your agenda packet this evening, is not available online. But we do still have the option for community members to submit comments at any time that via the website, via email, by phone call. I am always happy to take calls and discuss things with members of the community, but the survey itself is no longer available online.
But they can still do comments. They can send in their comments, and you will also take note of it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Most certainly.
Thank you.
Excuse me, one more thing I want to emphasize. I think the key takeaway for today's meeting in my mind is the comment made by one of the residents, the time value of money. When it comes to parking and TDM, time value of money is the most important factor. That means if you're trying to replace the automobiles people will not be able to have, then you want to replace it with something else. Their time value of money is most important. You should be able to provide enough public transportation, other methods of transportation, so that they don't lose time to achieve their day-to-day living things that they have to do. We talk about grocery shopping, maybe talk about dropping kids to school, could be, many other daily tasks that they have to perform. So the city has to come up with these alternate solutions of transportation and what you call TDM so that people's quality of life is not affected. I think that's the key point that needs to be addressed.
I'd like to add something also to that in the sense like, yes, the time value, because that's very valuable to any age group. But consider also, are we able to factor in the age group that is within Milpitas, wherein like not only just the seniors, that they could be grandmas, because now the young generation will leave their young kids and they will kind of look after them like, daycare type. But how do they get to travel? We have to give consideration not only to the seniors, the age pocket groups which is closest to that commercial area or whatever, wherein we could just consider the age pocket and then what would be their transportation, their mobility or something, as a balance to make Milpitas a place that people can say, what's the destination we have in Milpitas? But we have ample parking, we have families that are growing, something like that. I don't know. It's just an input. Thank you. Any other? All right. For this, we're not going to be taking any vote. It's just, we'd like to thank Holly and Jennifer and also the staff and of course our Ron and Sam here for staying up, and the commissioners. Our next, thank you so much. And our next, let me see. Oh, so no other new business items. Let me read this. Any person aggrieved by any final decision of any board, commission, or department head of the city of Milpitas may appeal the decision to the city council by filing a written notice of the appeal with the city clerk within 12 calendar days of the date of said decision and paying the required fee. This time limit shall be strictly enforced. Our last item will be adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Commissioner Kong. And do I have a second from Commissioner Gupta? Ms. Liz, vote please.
Yes, one last vote for this evening. Commissioner Kong,
Aye.
Commissioner Colkins,
Aye.
Commissioner Gupta,
Aye.
Commissioner Wasti,
Aye.
Commissioner Galang,
Aye.
Vice Chair Medina Ashby,
Aye.
and Chair Albana.
Aye.
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.